So next up, we're going to be checking out Burgerkrieg's Alex Jones was right about evil wizards, Mage the Ascension lore. We did the previous parts where he went through the Marauders, who were insane, literally. And now we're on the Nefandi, who unfortunately are very, in their own way, shape, and form, sane. It's going to be weird because we just got to time, and now we're on, I think, the Euthanatoys connection to them, or the bullshit that happens with it. And Martin is saying in the chat, but I will be happy with you facing the horrors you helped me implement. Oh God, for anyone wondering, Martin is the DM where I play a mage game, and I don't like that he's enjoying this because that means bad things are going to happen to me. So let's enjoy my descent into madness as I realize the DM is watching this and getting ideas while I'm freaking out. So he's going to know exactly what parts freak me out the most and take notes. If this sounds like I'm making a mistake, yeah. Let's get into it before I overthink this and... No, actually not overthink it. Think about it accurately and stop.
So most of the Chakravanti who deal with them are tasked specifically with annihilating them. Of course, all the traditions do this, as does the technocracy. There is no mercy when it comes to Nefandi. They will literally destroy their souls and avatars. And they all have specialists at doing this. So you might think that, I don't know, maybe the Chakravanti are particularly zealous because having a sinister reputation, unfounded of course, they want to set themselves apart as much as possible. But of course, that's not the reason at all.
What?
The Chakravanti are just particularly focused on fate and the karmic wheel, which Nefandi have rejected in ways that go beyond just like straying from what they were supposed to do. They are constantly pulling everyone from the wheel.
Because they're opposed to Ascension and anti-ascending, almost going backwards. I think I heard someone mention in one of the Mage the Podcast talks that in revised, not the current edition, they were people who explicitly rejected Ascension, and then others were explicitly serving outer gods. And you couldn't be a Nefandi if you didn't explicitly serve someone. Because they brought up an example of some kind of evil guy I didn't know the name of, and he refused to serve anyone, so technically he couldn't be a Nefandis. But I think that might have changed in later editions.
Also into a space that is antithetical to existence. That is why the Chakravanti are particularly concerned. But of course, to hunt Nefandi, you must learn to think like them, and the Nefandi are excellent at exploiting that and making you fall. Means and methods which Nefandi pursue are often heavily colored by their original paradigm. There are literal evil wizards who use dark hermetics and goetic rituals, and warty witches who like make vile potions and fetid poisons. You know, the classic kind of stuff.
And probably still normal hermetics, because they kind of have a reputation. And they definitely live down to it.
Out there. But you also have...
And I play Hermetic, I should know.
Cybernetically augmented techno-torturers, drug-hazed artists of carnage who work with blood palettes, and
I'm pretty sure that's one of the players in the Bruva Alpha Busa Norfolk Wizard games. She's also a cinnamon roll.
Senseis astrally projecting to like the edges of the void.
Also, I'm being told by Martin, you can go through a call to be a Nefandis. You can be evil without doing that. Yeah.
Where they can sever the souls of meditating monks. The technique is secondary. What matters is that it be used in an evil way. Their road to Leviathan is not just a road that brings them closer to communing with the higher demons, it also brings them closer to becoming Leviathan. There's no like real endpoint to this. You might say that all demons in the underworld are still on their own road to Leviathan because it's like a constant eating and being...
Wait, if they're constantly eating and being eaten, does that mean that eventually there would just be one giant demon left, but it's probably not the one you are? And what point do you become a demon rather than just a regular Nefandi?
Eaten? Inevitably, there is always the element of self-delusion here that even though, you know, they're starting at the back foot, and most people who go down this road are...
They're literally a pyramid scheme, aren't they? It's literally the, you start now, but eventually you'll be at the top. Except no, you won't be, because the guy at the top is still at the top. And the guys right below them think they're going to be at the top, but they're never going to be at the top because the guy above them is still there. Yep.
Are suckers. Somehow they'll be the ones who make it. Almost as though they were like an analogy for some kind of like system or person in the real world. But of course, I mean, I can't think of it because it's like I'm trying so hard to keep politics out of...
I wonder how old is this video? 8 months? I have no idea what this could possibly be a reference to.
My games. The espoused ideal, like the vision of the Nefandis, their equivalent to Ascension is to become the Black Diamond.
What?
The ultimate state of hardened perfection, born from acquiring more and more, and it being compressed by the merciless forces of chaos.
So their entire shtick is, we are so evil that nothing can hurt us because everything else is nice by comparison, and we are the toughest, most rugged diamond, the black diamond of evil. That almost sounds like a joke that someone took serious. And considering the influence of the people writing this, that actually might be the legitimate point of it. Huh.
Demons, of course, still living in Hellhound Eat Hellhound reality suggest that there is not really any such state, and it's an abstraction to give Nefandi some measure of perverse hope that they may one day find peace in being truly unassailable. On the other hand, nobody really fucks with the most powerful demons, and while they certainly war one another, it's mostly their servants who are collateral damage.
Yeah, but then also when you become the most powerful demon, you have to worry about the other most powerful demons. And then you have to get more stronger to get away from the most powerful demons. And you have to know more powerful demons. I think I see where this goes. It's all demons all the way down.
Exploit and oppress those lesser than them is always easy. And honestly, compared to mortality, even like magical mortality, being a powerful demonic entity must seem like a black diamond state even acknowledged that perhaps they are not the most powerful of demons. It's really hard to know any.
I do know power scaling in World of Darkness is odd because, well, frankly, there's multiple influences and some of them explicitly don't like crossovers, and there's others that explicitly do like crossovers, and then there's Sorcerer, which is by definition a crossover with Mage, but also pulls on everything else, and then there's all the outside influence that Sorcerer gets into. I don't know much about Sorcerer, other than that apparently the end is what might be the most canon end of the world, but also set up anything after that, and it's just interesting, and just, It feels like there's a lot going on here, and I just wish I knew more.
Anything about them anyway. They're so far beyond human understanding without even trying. And I suppose that's what sets them apart from the Nefandi, who very much are trying to affect that aesthetic of being beyond humanity. But in doing so betray a deep understanding of that exact humanity in their vile and transgressive actions. Locking a maternity ward into a time loop so you can manipulate the nurses into flaying the babies and the mothers into eating them, abducting a whole city's pets just to like live stream how you put them into a meat grinder.
The first one is comically evil to the point of not being taken seriously. The second one, that's just fucked up.
Or imbuing a homeless guy with like just unbreakable powers of regeneration while driving his pain receptors up to not 11 but like 1 million and subjecting him to eternal torture. These acts are inconceivably evil, but they are not acts of inconceivable evil. They are essentially the acts of posers, right?
So in other words, if you understand the course of the evil, then you're proving that you're not evil enough because your evil is now perceptible. But if you're unperceptibly evil, then at one point no one cares anymore. Huh.
Edgelords. So I guess the road to Leviathan is just like, fake it till you make it.
Are we saying that a multi-level marketing organization, I know what I said, is bunch of posers lying to themselves and faking it because they're not sure what the most hardcore person would be, proving they're the most man? I mean, so the most authentic and doing the real thing to see that they are the best. I am shocked that it's built on lies. This is absolutely really obvious.
You'd think that people who think like this are paranoid enough to like always try to go their own way. I mean, sure, they have their cults and stooges, but
it's like if you find someone, this is the kind of person who says do your own research and then ignores the fact that they don't know how to do research. And then found the wrong answer, now believes it wholeheartedly because someone told it was the case. Validating that they did it right the first time.
Wouldn't want anyone above you, or Satan forbid, next to you. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Sure, some Nefandi do strike out on their own, and they never last long. Even in the world of evil, there is safety in numbers. You'll always tend to have some sort of master. It came from...
I mean, I'm assuming the reason it's safety in numbers is because you can always go to the other guys like, hey, you fall first. And also, you don't have someone next to you then. So it's like, I survived, so I'm better. Except, you're just the next person in line.
with your initiation, but your peers may well prove useful to you.
Indeed,
if you
Valerian.
play them right. There's also a certain diversity in the views of Nefandi, and many fall somewhere on a spectrum between personal and global descent, just as mages do. And especially those leaning more toward the global side of things understand that no matter how powerful they become, they cannot fulfill their mission alone. Organizing is useful, so while they tend to be disloyal and cantankerous, it's not quite every man for himself. They have a great diversity
it's every
of
man
titles
for me.
and organizations, but much like the Clipothic Tree of Knowledge is a common element of translation, certain ranks and roles appear again and again. And even when an Nefandus doesn't understand themselves as a particular rank, they will know and understand that others see them that way. At the lowest, or I suppose high.
Because every single one would believe that they are the chosen one who could do everything, who will never have anything bad happen to them because they'll be doing the bad things to everyone else. But I also know that they believe I'm roughly at this level of the power, and if they're like, the people below me are weaker, they have to be nice, and the ones above me, they can't really say anything. So they view me as here, even though I know I'm really... Okay, this is going to be a point that I wasn't expecting to make a connection with. It sounds like every type of main character in a cultivation novel. Like the I am actually the greatest, but we haven't discovered it yet. And I'm just one great breakthrough away from the next level of power to show that I am the immortal who will shake the heavens and tear them down. Literally, it's just an Ascension protagonist, except with more delusional bullshit and also explicitly evil, as opposed to cultivation novel protagonists who are held up as perfect paragons of good, even while they will slaughter millions. Sometimes. But yeah, it's like just a dark reflection on that, which I would think is kind of ironic, except White Wolf also made freaking Exalted, which is basically Western cultivation, and it's actually kind of cool looking. Like, the art for it is legitimately amazing. Huh. Also, Isaac, $5, the technocracy falls into civil war. Technically, that won't happen because the people in charge who would go to war were removed in the knowest ones, and no one else knows enough to say who would be at war with who. And the people who did are missing, and it's kind of way too anarchic right now for them to happen. Although, if you want to play it that way, you can do it.
Highest point, according to Nefandic logic, are the Dregvati,
What?
the Dregs, which probably comprise the majority of what outsiders think of as Nefandi.
Cultist, uninitiated.
They aren't even actual proper Nefandi.
They're just assholes in a cult. So if you find a demon worshiper who isn't doing anything evil, they're like, oh yeah, we have this insert cannon fodder here. Yeah.
Cultists, servants, slaves, targets who are utterly disposable and do the bidding of the proper, real Nefandi. Most of them have never even heard the term Nefandi before. Like, they think they're just part of whatever cult that they serve. Most of them are mortals and sorcerers, but there are some mages who have, like, become devotees of Nefandic thought. Those who have taken the first steps down the path of corruption, but who have not entered the call yet. Though they are dregs, for obvious reasons, they're not quite as disposable, but assets that need cultivation. That doesn't mean they're never used or disposed of course. Nefandi are all those who survived the call and...
So this would be the first step. It's from going from the dreg, or I'm not even going to try and say that word, to this. And I'm also being told by Martin, actually the old High Lords of the TU are trying to take over again. Oh, that's an update. Technocratic Union for TU. Okay. Because I know there was the entire thing of they became better because the guys in charge who were explicitly delusional because they lived in their own little worlds where their reality was world. Yeah. Not misspeaking on that one. That's exactly how it worked. Are trying to take over, which also means enforcing their delusion on the Technocratic Union people who are still living within the world itself. That is a fascinating look at it. Because on the one hand, the High Lords would be very powerful. On the other hand, they are way too powerful to enter Earth, so they're literally cut out from it. That is a fascinating take on where I could actually see the traditions having the same issue to have odd bedfellows, where it would be the Technocratic Union and the traditions versus the Technocratic Union and the traditions, but it'd be like the super powerful but not allowed on Earth versus the weaker but still allowed on Earth sides. That would break people's brains, and I kind of love it. Can you imagine if there was like some kind of campaign where you're trying to get into the, you know, Umbra and it was just all bullshit like that, that'd be weird.
Had their avatars.
It makes someone named Cosmic Void
we are
rage.
faced with a fundamental problem with the metaphysical nature of Nefandi. Not all those who have inverted avatars are in fact Nefandi. Because sometimes Nefandi die, and when their avatars are not destroyed, they get another go on the merry-go-round of reincarnation. So we end up with kids who, through no fault of their own, are born with a demonic shard in them. Such people are called Widderslans.
Oh, never mind. Maybe that's not Barabi then. Widderslan. A person with an Nephandic avatar from a previous life. This is something I will acknowledge I don't like because I hate the idea of predestination. That this is going to happen regardless. And you have no choice in the matter. That does bother me a lot.
And they create a dangerous dilemma for the traditions. They are metaphysically Nefandi, but they're not formally in the organization. They don't subscribe to its philosophy. And though they have this dark urge within them, they may not necessarily want to be bad people. While a Nefandus can never be saved, a Widderslanscher can resist the nature of their evil avatar, and good mages work tirelessly to make that happen. But there's always a huge risk that they will fall, at which point the resources spent to keep them from doing so were wasted, and they are in an excellent position to drag good-natured souls with them. But because Nephandic avatars tend to be hunted and rendered in their own right, most Nefandi are not Widderslan.
Barabbas. Oh, okay, this is the word. A convert from a different magical group. Huh? Wouldn't it just be every Nefandus would be a Barabbas then? Because they all came from somewhere else?
But Barabi.
Actually, is there like an entire hierarchy where the Nefandi who came and were reincarnated are more liking it because they were born Nefandi? Nah, I have no idea.
Converts from all over the world of Mage. All Nefandi are considered Nefandi, of course, but there are certain higher ranks and functions that these guys have not stepped into yet, or perhaps have no desire to step into ever. For instance, the Shaitan,
a Nephandic warrior
of Nephandic forces, the real killers, the seasoned warriors who command elite groups of hardened mercenaries. They may not be so good at the grand world-spanning plots, but they are
probably the ones you'd be the most afraid to fight immediately. Maybe not the most dangerous, but definitely the one who's like, okay, he gonna kill me now. It's like facing a loaded shotgun that has an auto fire feature, which I just found out is a thing you could do really early in World of Darkness, and it is as bad as you think it is.
Powerful agents of mayhem. When the Nefandi want to see someone dead, and usually that does mean you and your player characters, this is who they send. The Ad Sinistrati are the opposite of that. Their job is recruitment. And whatever passes.
And this is probably the one that is the most dangerous if you're not aware of it, because, I mean, they said seducer and spy. Either they know everything they shouldn't, or they're going to make you go with it.
This is diplomacy among the fallen ones. They are cunning manipulators, silver-tongued social engineers, who seek targets to corrupt, and who are sent to entreaties with other forces of fundamental evil because they tend to be excellent social chameleons.
Yep.
And this is
so in other words, they probably love Pentex.
They act as infiltrators in the traditions, the crafts, or the technocracy.
Or in the traditions case, the more upstanding members of the Hermetics. I'm throwing a lot of shade on this one, which is funny just because I actually do love playing a Hermetic mage. It's fun.
Because that is where they were recruited from in the first place. The Prelati are the true masterminds, the generals and planners. They have rank, command, and seniority on their side, and they just get to tell other Nefandi what to do. Which also means that they need to have the means to ensure that the people they send to do their bidding
probably mind control,
follow through and don't try to backstab them. So they cultivate like fear, devotion, all manner of incentives to manage their personnel. The Ashra, with 3 A's, actually, also known as Galedians, are the formal masters of the Nefandi.
Galedian. Why does that name sound familiar? It sounds like I've heard a variation of Gilead or Gilead. Where have I heard this? And Martin, Hermetics aren't evil. They just get shafted with the idiot ball most of the time. Yeah, I know. It's kind of why I love them. It's the faction that it somehow is like, we're somehow the good guys. How? Versus the technocracy, it was like, we're somehow the good guys, but we're trying to fix that. Except they're actually trying to fix it. Unless you're in the Syndicate, in which case we're getting worse and we're liking it. God.
Incredibly powerful wizards, archmages of the inverted spheres, who lead twisted existences beyond the bounds of reality.
In other words, these would be the ones who would be like the technocratic union leaders or the highest level existences in the traditions who are so powerful that they basically have to live in their own horizon realms outside of Earth because Paradox would nope them for being too weird. Okay.
Almost seen more as proper demons than people. And
but not
frankly,
demons
many
yet.
Prelati are quite happy that they cannot come to the real world anymore because that means they can manipulate them as much as they do their underlings.
It's exactly the reverse of what happens with the technocracy, where the technocracy has to lie to the people who are too powerful because they're so out of touch. They only hear what they want to hear, and you can't say otherwise, because if you're hearing otherwise, you're not saying it in the world they exist, because you can't say that, because in their world, it's exactly what they think and exactly how it works. And even if it doesn't work in the real world, it works in their world, and that's what they care about. But also means that if any of them start casting magic that can cross over, they could fuck you up. Yeah, because they're basically the oh shit level of, yeah, we don't have the magic for this.
Or so the Prelati believe. And finally, the Aswadim.
Nephatic demigod?
Perhaps not. The true masters of the Nefandi. The bodhisattvas of the fallen, who have attained such a low degree of endarkenment that they are effectively indistinguishable from the actual demons. Much like the highest-ranking mages who don't quite ascend, the sages of evil sort of stand on the verge of the absolute darkness, helping others to descend down there. Why exactly they haven't taken the plunge themselves?
Why would they help someone descend further? Probably because they're smart enough and they've realized what happens, and now they're just taking pleasure for making other people take the step they've realized is not something they want to do. But they're still so fucked up, they don't want to get better. That would be the ultimate irony, that the people who most realize the lie are the people at the top, which would fit in with the entire cult or multi-level marketing, where the people at the top realize that it is a scam, and they keep doing it because it's fun, and they probably get something out of it.
Themselves as anyone's guess, frankly, but it's something that when you are standing down by the ultimate precipice, I mean, it's perhaps a little late to think about that, to question that sort of thing. Yeah. But of course, the Aswadim themselves will say that they have, in fact, lowered themselves into the Klipothic universes and become real demons. And who's to say that that's not true? While the influence of Nefandi can be felt everywhere, they tend to keep their chantries more secret and hidden than most mages. In fact, they're not even called chantries, but labyrinths, which is not exactly the same as the labyrinth at the bottom of, like, the underworld in Wraith, though many are connected to that very place.
I hear a lot of things about Wraith in here, and, like, is the call connected to Wraith somehow? Because I heard that's what you're seeing almost. And then, or is it the Abyss you're seeing, which is connected to some things, and I know part of Vampire, but I know very little about Vampire. I feel like I'm missing a lot of connections and I'm just not entirely sure what's going on. Also, Valerian. Honestly, I know he's Arete 9, 10, a mega evil, mega powerful, but I can't take the Edgelord seriously. What? Oh, Nameless. Nameless is the Nefandi. Yeah, I think I've heard about him, actually. But I don't know why I've heard about him. It's probably mentioned somewhere else before.
A really cool canonical labyrinth is Dracus Vakor.
What?
Accessible through a lighthouse on a barrier island off the coast of Georgia. And located in Ulik Batu, the Sea of Ash. An endless ocean with no surface, but a sickly fluorescent floor. Inhabited by warped and mutated bioluminescent sea creatures like giant crab octopus, human-faced shark orcas, or eel swarms that coalesce into shadow clouds. People can breathe water.
Shark orcas with human faces. I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on that. That is... Okay, as far as fucked up things go, that's definitely up there.
Here, tarnishing their luck.
Martin, do not take references to that. Please, dear God, no.
Lungs, of course, but they can make it to the dark metal fortress of Dracus Vakor at the bottom of the sea. It has the vibe of a grimy Victorian underwater base, right? Claustrophobic, yet sprawling, with bulkheads and portholes containing, like, a group of, actually not even Nephandic mages, they're tradition mages who have been trapped there by the Nephandi Galarius Emerald Eyes. They are tended to and overseen by creatures called hooded horrors, sort of slick black hoods with a vague semblance of something insectile in their shadowed interior. They speak their own language, which mortals cannot understand, but given that all this started as part of like a demonic island cult in that area of the world, generally speaking, they...
How close? No, Raleigh, I think, was off of Maryland or Virginia, so not Georgia. That's probably not the right place.
Might just be speaking like hoity-toity brogue. I mentioned Dracus Vicor because it is in the best World of Darkness book, the Crab Book.
Blood Dim Tides. I've heard of this. That's what it looks like? Oh shit. Giant glowing crabs. Crab. My god. 8 octopus. Or an 8-capus. Cool water shit. Oh god. Sharks.
It's actually only mentioned in the Crab Book and more properly described in the Book of Chantries.
I'm being told by Kryn, this is essentially normal Subnautica at this point. And Martin, we could go there cause there are other entrances. Why are you pointing this out? Oh no. Oh, I don't like it when my DM gets ideas.
But it is in there, right?
Okay.
And that allows me to mention the Crab Book. Much like the traditions have their traditions and the technocracy has its conventions, the Nefandi is split into various sects that all have their own outlook on descent into darkness. They are much more fragmented than the factions of either, but there are 3 main sects worth mentioning. Well, perhaps the only reason these 3 sects are the ones mentioned is because they can be slotted into that famous framework that makes sense in some way.
So basically this is how it's going to look, as the people doing X probably working for X or trying to self-destruct, most likely. Just taking a guess there. And Rosh, I'm just going to pull up your comment. 1, thank you very much. 2, it is not loading. I should probably fix that. I don't know why it just crashes sometimes. Ooh, Freeman's Mind or America Wizard is winning. With hand plates or Twisted Origins of P, really close. Nice. I see where Subnautica took some of its inspiration. There is a crab squid that fires off EMP with shark face with sound like the... Oh, God. Wait, was Subnautica partially inspired by Mage? Worse, by Demon the Fallen? Okay, that's fine. And Renz, there's a guy named Adrian. His handle is Silver Scream 910, and he's good at characters as Mad Friender, the American Hogwarts transfer student. Actually, I think a few people have mentioned that because I've heard about the American Hogwarts transfer student one already. And in Werewolf Forsaken 2, there's a crab host living in an artificial island off the coast of Tokyo. They are so dangerous that the werewolves only go there to meet their ends. Crabs beat wolf. Okay, that's not something I was expecting.
As they each represent a corrupted, evil aspect of the cosmic triad. There are smaller Nephandic sects that actually may be bigger. Nobody knows because it's not like they have a census. But these 3 are the most important because they can be the most easily taxonomized.
Oh.
The Infernalists are the classic...
Okay, this is what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, it's the breakdown of how you describe the groups in the Nefandi. There's probably also going to be one that's just the people on their own who will burn out fast, but burn.
Devil worshipper type guys.
Yeah.
They have their secret cults with complicated arcane designations, ranks and positions, practicing complex rituals involving blood sacrifices and alchemical concoctions with ingredients like, I don't know, the left eye of a 3rd child or the lungs of a guy who is technically still alive. There are countless different cults.
Oddly enough, that one is now possibly a thing you could do because I think just earlier this year, a doctor invented a replacement lung device to keep his patient alive when their lungs were turned to mush and they didn't have the transplants yet. Yeah, invented on the spot by the doctor. I think it was on I don't exactly know where, but I heard it was, I think South Africa. I don't think it was America. I don't think it was Europe. Maybe it was Australia. I don't remember where. It's just one of those stories I thought was really cool. I wanted to look into it more. They just never got around to because I forgot the name of the place to look into it.
With often very different aesthetics and structures, but they all serve some sort of demon or demons, even though they are often deceptive about that sort of thing and pretend to worship God instead some of the time. The Bible Belt is full of churches serving Infernalist purposes. Their ideology has utterly pervaded U.S.
I'm assuming the reference here would probably be the Gospel of Prosperity. The concept is, if you have money, you're right. How'd you get it? Murdered a guy? Well, now you have his money, so you're right. I'm heavily oversimplifying it, but not by as much as you would think.
Protestantism. Some of them are quite sprawling organizations and tend to include many non-mages. They see themselves as the traditionalists, the old guard, very formalized in what they do and set in their ways, even though technically, of the three major sects, they are the youngest one. In triadic terms, they represent the worst aspects of the Weaver: authority, subservience, control, rigid hierarchies that seek to erase the will of those caught within them. A classic Infernalist Nefandi, crucially not a canonical figure, but one I made up, could be Chak Ko'olel, who claims to serve the vengeful gods of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld, in a revanchist war against the church. Almost 2 centuries ago, she was just a girl in a Catholic orphanage in Yucatan, bound to strict discipline by nuns who loved physical castigation, and abused by a priest just as most of the other girls were. She awakened in a moment of pain, and actually banished him to the spirit world, where he didn't come back from, which led to her discovery and recruitment by the Celestial Chorus, whom she studied with for almost 2 decades. She always had like a dark and manipulative streak, but it was considered and treated as a wound from her
She's one of the withers, isn't she?
Incredibly terrible upbringing. Eventually, she discovered that the reason she'd been an orphan was that her village had been razed and her family slaughtered by Catholic settlers. An Sinistratus necromancer who had kept an eye on her lured her down the path by puppeteering the wraiths of her parents and promising vengeance.
Oh, so you can actually drag out wraiths to do that. So if you're a necromancer, you are explicitly playing a crossover game with Wraith the Oblivion. That is fucked up, man.
And eventually the power to protect herself from God and his servants. These days, she looks almost like a skeleton with sunburnt skin, though she has a tendency to disguise herself when needed, in which case she prefers to dress up as a nun, usually matronly and kind, but sometimes nubile and innocent when the situation calls for it. Though she worships the demons of the Mayan underworld, her worldview is still distinctly Catholic in how it's structured, and that is the world in which she operates to corrupt. She has a cult of sort of a Catholic Mayan occultists she brings to the truth by introducing them to saints who are really these sort of Mayan demons, and reminding them of all the horrors that have been done to their people.
So in other words, it's taking we did horrible things in the past, using the admittedly good reason, and then breaking people on, don't you want to do something about it to fix this wrong, followed by, and now we just got to do this, and now we just got to do this, followed by, oh, and by the way, we're not going to do that. You're now too far in. You're not getting out. It's literally how gangs recruit people. Congratulations, you just killed a man. If you ever tell anyone about this, we have this over you for the rest of your life. You can't get out. You're in.
Faction includes quite a few freedom fighters, especially of the intellectual variety, though not many ideological anarchists, which are of course common in Yucatan, because they can smell her infernalist need for hierarchy from kilometers away. As long as they obey her, she treats her followers well, like righteous warriors doing important work, reclaiming the land from oppressors.
But also destroying them as much as she's getting to destroy the people she doesn't like, while also tying herself into the thought frame that she hates because someone else fucked with her. It very much seems like this is not someone fighting for what they believe in, but someone who's trying to fight for self-destruction and to see how many other people can share their misery, while also trying to hurt the people they don't like, but emulating the worst aspects of what hurt them. That actually seems almost poetic, and I would love that interpretation of an Nefandi as someone who is essentially their worst impulses turned on themselves and shared.
If them are not super into the idea of needing to enter pacts with demons to like make that happen, but she can be very convincing.
But also then you run into people who would be like, yeah, I want to fight back. This is horrible. We need to fix this. And then also you're not actually succeeding what you need, which is honestly very easy to play off for most rebel groups because we've overthrown the dictator, followed by, and now we could be in his place. And, oh, well, we kind of also like having power is a very common refrain. So it's very easy to play off. And Hulu, it's basically Batman. Yeah, except if Batman decided to stay with the hand. I want to say foot, but I know that's Ninja Turtles. I don't know why it keeps coming to mind, though.
Labyrinth is El Templo Bajo el Sol Negro,
that is a thing.
An overgrown temple complex that is in equal parts Mayan and Spanish colonial, under a red sky where a sun black as the void always stands at noon. It can be accessed by staring at the sun on the grounds of the orphanage she grew up in until you are
she's still there?
By it, at which point you find yourself staring at the black.
So in other words, she literally tied herself to the thing she hated that made her get magic in the first place. Yeah. It almost seems like, I mean, this is his own interpretation of it, but becoming a Nefandi written this way as someone who ties himself to their pain without realizing the irony of that does kind of fit thematically.
Black sun in her realm. When the wind howls through the dark jungle all around, the leaves cry with the agony of generations of genocide enacted upon the Mayan people. The trees are not rooted in soil, but jagged spires jutting up from the darkness of Xibalba below. One of the most important areas in the temple is the Red Pit, where Chak keeps a vampire, a Tremere anti-tribu ancilla, chained and fed in a state of permanent pseudo-frenzy. This is...
You know, I'm going to say something I never expected. I feel sorry for that vampire. That Tremere vampire. Because admittedly, as horrible as they are, this sounds worse. Pity for a Tremere is not where I thought I was going today. This is unexpected.
Is necessary so she can access the powers of the blood, including disciplines. She's actually quite adept at Tremere blood magic.
Because technically they would be a form of sorcery, which is what the Tremere pick up. Because while true magic is out there, sure, sorcery is still a thing. It just, you know, very set ways to do it. So it's not impossible, yeah.
Which helps her manifest various minor paradox-proof effects when she needs to. Nobody knows who this vampire...
Actually, that is the thing. Are sorceries paradox-proof if a mage does them? That would be kind of fascinating just to pick up sorcery in general then. Corinne, Kevin? Oh yeah, he was Tremere, wasn't he? Yeah.
Is, or how she got him here, but he's been down there longer than anyone can remember. And he didn't get nuked in the 90s when all the Tremere anti-tribu got nuked, so, you know. Then we have these guys, who I can only assume are pronounced
Kalasha?
Sha'a, and whom I will henceforth be referring to as the Outsiders.
I have no idea. Is the apostrophe in the name supposed to be a clicking sound? Klasha? I keep wanting to say Nakov at the end for some reason, but that's a completely different thing.
They are the Nefandi whose paradigms have not just seen beyond, but beyond even that. And then a lot further beyond that even. They are a rejection of absolutely everything conceivable and all things unconceivable besides. Where others worship darkened versions or antagonists to protective spirits, evil aspects of the human condition, the Outsiders commune with beings so far beyond our frame of reference that we have absolutely no hope of comprehending them. They are neither evil nor malicious, simply because those categories of thought mean absolutely nothing to them. And the same is true about the Outsiders. They engage in acts of unspeakable cruelty and evil, and they recognize them as such, but they are paired with a feeling of an almost beneficent exaltation. Evil is the path to power, but it also doesn't really exist, right? It's a human construct that a true god should grow beyond.
But the irony is that if you recognize it as evil, then that morality then applies to you because it's how you already view it. It's kind of like the difference between blood sacrifice for the Aztecs where, yeah, we don't like this, but the alternative is everyone dies. And if you play that type of thought process, that does work. And I think there were some books that did go into that as an option. I think it was oddly enough in Mummy, because I think I was listening to Mage the podcast about Mummy First Edition where that was brought up, but I could be mistaken because my memory is shit. But then also, if you don't realize it's evil, it doesn't count because you didn't realize, which would be closer to what the Bloodborne gods were, because a lot of them really had no idea they were fucking people over, because a few of them were trying to be benevolent. Trying. Yeah.
They understand that others perceive what they do as evil. They're just sort of fine with that. When they steal a bus full of backpackers in whatever, like, remote middle of nowhere backpackers go to, nail them to the walls of a pit, connect their mind to a stone that links them all, and then they bake the stone until their souls are nothing but ash, it is a gift that they give to those people. They're not delusional about the pain, of course, but they think that they are not victims, right? They are tools in a great work that they could never understand. They are privileged to have their existence erased in pursuit of such glory. Because the Lovecraftian entities they worship are so strange and diverse, they are the smallest and least organized of all the sects.
So in other words, the ones who have the weirdest look, but also could be the ones you could trick into being thought of as benevolent while doing evil, but also still doing evil. So probably the most disturbed. But the fact that they recognize that it is evil is in its own right applying morality to them. And Bill, yes, Cenobites. Actually, Cenobites wouldn't count here because they actually generally, depending on the interpretation, because that did change every damn movie, some of them were being nice. Like, they were genuinely doing the nicest thing they can imagine. Depending on some of the movies, like there's apparently a lot going on there, and the writers and directors changed it every movie on the interpretation. Some of them, that was actually the nicest gift-giving, benevolent people they can imagine. It just happened to be that we didn't experience the world in the same way. Others were exactly as evil as you think. Yeah.
And don't really much care for rank, pomp, or ceremony. Unlike the others, the few followers they do gather tend to be treated with greater value and respect. Their cultists may not understand the truth in any meaningful way, but they understand it more than everyone else does. Not that this stops them from, like, manipulating and maiming them in horrifying ways. In the Cosmic Triad, they represent the wild, the force of chaos and unpredictability, a complete and utter lack of discrimination. An example outsider, once again not canon but of my own making, might be the leafless Abu al-Khidai, who has no leaves. He may be found by those who lose their way in the flickering dunes of the Erk Chech in the Sahara, an area the Tuareg travel through only with great trepidation. You may see him if you have truly lost your way. He will be on the horizon, looking at you, and if you approach, he will remain on the horizon in spite of never moving a step until you are on the edge of desperation. He's a small man, completely hairless, and dressed in simple robes, constantly spitting a caustic liquid out of the corners of his mouth, which runs down to his chin, where it has formed sort of like a crystalline beard that smells horribly of sulfur and vinegar.
He has a spittle beard. Sorry, it's like, this is all horrible, and there's been more horrible things said, but for some reason, just the idea of the spittle stays on you, and you, like, but then it crystallizes in the heat into a beard of your own spit, and I'm just like, ooh. It's like, I don't even like when I drool in my sleep, and it disgusts me, and this is worse. Ooh. Also has. Ooh, thank you for dropping in for the first stream. What's up, man?
At this point, you will be so pained by thirst, you will drink even this spittle.
You know, I have apparently found my line of what I am not able to stomach, and that is definitely over it. Okay. I was okay with never hearing every single one of the words we just hit, and nope.
Served in a broad bronze bowl, and he will send you on your way to return to the place you have lost. Though you will be unable to speak of the experience, it will haunt you. Sometimes you will wake at night remembering the pain of drinking the spittle, paired with the exhilarating relief of feeling your thirst finally quenched. And one night you will comprehend. You will go into the desert and be willingly swallowed by a maelstrom of sand. This is where the story ends, but what lies on the other side of the maelstrom, and nobody knows about this really, is Abu al-Khidai's Labyrinth, the name of which roughly translates to the skullcap of a man who hangs upside down from the chin of God. It is a cavernous realm composed almost entirely of rotting fat in various shades of yellow, grey, and black, constantly shifting and vibrating. It's inhabited by bone worms shaped like a human thumb, and floating, ray-like creatures that ululate orgasmic moans through the holes. At the heart of it...
This is just sensation overload in the most disturbing way possible, like thirst being quenched by, like, a caustic mix that is spittle, and then fat undulating, and then moaning bones and worms, and it's like... This is like someone went on the hub and decided, you know what? This is too safe for work. What if it was more fucked up? Or basically any Sid Snap video that is uncensored. Yeah, that makes unfortunate sense.
There is a mountain of bubbles, each laden with a different, intensely acerbic and alchemical smell.
Still not alcohol.
The largest bubbles are where Abu al-Khidai and his followers reside.
Yes, followers.
Cultivating pustules on the fatty floor that manifest into fragments of black stone. Abu al-Khidai meditates on these fragments and then does as they tell him. After that, he slots them into the great stone at the center of his complex, a non-Euclidean formation that'll give you a headache if you look at it for more than a minute, and which...
Okay, this is just a personal thing. Non-Euclidean just means it has curves. Non-Euclidean geometry is... You see that building? You see how it's circular instead of a square? I'm oversimplifying it, but that's... Here, I'll just pull up a quick picture of non-Euclidean geometry. It's not... This is one of those... Lovecraft popularized the term, but if you want an example of it, look at Xeno things in 40K that just have sloping fantasy outlines. That's kind of like that. Yeah, it actually comes up really fast. This is it. Euclidean, flat, spherical, hyperbolic. It's freaking curved. Space is curved. Regular space and gravity is non-Euclidean. The flat Earth is Euclidean. Earth is non-Euclidean. That's all it is. Sorry, I have a button when it comes to this, and it's one of those... And this is some Lovecraft shit. Oh, yeah, but at this point, non-Euclidean is based around the idea of that's how he used it, so it's more of a tradition at this point. And people get it as this doesn't seem normal. Because if you're in a very square, very flat world, such as a city, where everything is in angles, having something in a round building without any edges, without any corners, and the floor is shaped and warped, and you're in a place that's now undulating because it's kind of curving around, would be very unsettling, which is why it's written that way. But the actual words do not mean what people think they mean now. They think non-Euclidean means inhuman, not, hey, look, my finger isn't perfectly straight and has rounded edges. That counts. It's also incomprehensible horrors would be, I don't know what I'm looking at. But that's not how it's portrayed, and most people now go for the other option, even though it technically isn't correct, because words change meaning, and that's just a whole bunch of English major bullshit I could drop on there, but we'll just not do that right now.
Abu al-Khidai often spends days on end contemplating. The greatest honor for one of his followers is to be immured in this stone, which he says he will one day ride to the place of truth. And finally, what do you mean immured? The Malfians, ultimate incarnates of primal annihilation. Demons. The true agents of oblivion. The term Malfian also appears in Wraith, the Oblivion, and also to a lesser extent in Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Really, Werewolf?
And though they represent different things in those games, these things are still very much related. Remember that everything in World of Darkness is a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah.
The game lines all represent groups that only see each other from a distance. And language, you know, it works that way. Like, words and names will be misappropriated.
Kind of like how there's the Wild, the Weaver, and the Worm, but then other factions in other settings do not call them that, except for when they do, but then also they might mean different things, which is literally what we're seeing here.
So Malfian and Nefandi are not ancient undead or neverborn entities that serve the forces of oblivion, but they do very much still serve the forces of oblivion. They're just not the first part. Malfians both hate and pity existence. They hold that there is something fundamentally wrong with it, and they want to be the effectors of its end. Where Infernalists hold that evil is power and outsiders hold that evil is truth, Malfians believe that evil is good. They're a primordial, almost spiritual sort of organization, perhaps the oldest of all the Nephandic sects, and not particularly concerned about their identity as mages. They are first and foremost servants of the...
Wait, really? Not concerned about being a mage? Because that's like the biggest thing with everyone is the ability to affect the world with magic. But if that's not your biggest thing, that's actually kind of fascinating. Especially if their entire thing is making themselves powerful is not magic.
Worm of oblivion, of cosmic entropy. And though they have plenty of ritualism and idolatry, they're not as precise, as exacting as the Infernalists. They do not seek to deceive oblivion. They see it as the ultimate ideal, and consequently have the easiest time working together, not just with each other, but with various other types of supernatural beings. Spectres, for instance, spectral Malfians, the Pentex Corporation, werewolves of the Black Spiral Dancer tribe, certain vampires...
Because killing them would be like, thanks, I'm done. And Marty mentioned Malfians are the ones that serve the worm, and some then help run Pentex. Yeah, that makes sense. Because bringing absolute destruction to everything as a good thing means they're actively the most fucked up in the head, probably.
Vampiric Abyss Mystics.
Maybe. Oof.
Really a whole range of folks. They do still seek to dominate, though. In fact, out of all the sects, they take the laws of predation, survival of the strongest, the most seriously. Their view on descent is very much a global one, and the more powerful you are, the more you can bring it about by forcing it on others. They want war. They want climate change. They want social hierarchy.
So if you ever wanted to run a mage game with Nefandi, but set it in Metal Gear Solid, you're basically just playing Revengeance. That actually fits. I like war, Raiden.
Hierarchies that destroy the human soul. Evil is pointless unless it's inflicted on others against their will. Obviously, in the Cosmic Triad, they represent the worm, the force of entropy and destruction. And while the other sects are sort of whatever about being shoehorned into that system, the Malfians revel in it. They fully agree. A classic Malfian of my own making might be Hudson Gore, an international businessman based primarily in Hong Kong, but he has, made New York, London, even Frankfurt his home over the years. He was born to a wealthy land-owning family in Michigan in the 1920s, and had a sheltered, privileged upbringing with parents who cared for him and siblings who looked up to him.
So far, none of these people have been inherently evil because they were born with a Nephandic shard, so Burgerkrieg isn't getting to them yet, but it does feel a lot like, how to put it? Just not touching on that because that seems like its own plot line altogether.
The older siblings, he was a big boy. But there was just always something wrong with Hudson.
Or maybe I spoke too soon.
He delighted in cruelty and his superior physique that allowed him to overpower.
Did he play football in college before becoming a senator?
Even many of the adults that he met. In an act of desperation, his father ensured he would be drafted into the Second World War, into a particularly dangerous battalion, hoping...
Try to get rid of your son by putting him into World War II. That's the way to do it.
That the Germans would do what he hadn't had the stomach for. Given his size, you'd think he would make an easy target, and he was in fact shot a few times. But he loved the carnage too much to care. Through clever manipulation of superiors, he managed to become an officer, and eventually, his squad was one of the first to breach the camps. While the other soldiers stood around in incomprehensible horror, this was one of the most beautiful things Hudson Gore had ever seen.
That is probably one of the most fucked up things I've heard so far. But the list is up there, so sadly it isn't the most fucked up. Okay. Also, L, not all cultivation novels are good. Oh, Yeah, but you're probably on a huge delay, that's why. Yeah, that is going into World War II, finding the concentration camps and being like, I'm okay with this. Yeah, that's one way to definitely point out that you're a bad guy. Like, dear God, if you wanted to show me, okay, this is what it means to be on Malfian. Yeah, it doesn't matter if he has magic at this point. That is a level of fucked up that, God damn, man.
Way in which the Nazis managed to subjugate, dominate, and exploit the Jewish people until they were no more than walking skeletons inspired him so much that he awakened to the already inverted avatar in his soul.
So he was one of them.
Back home, all his family, even his extended family, very quickly died. They died. He got all the inheritance money for some reason, and then he heavily invested in the military-industrial complex, the oil industry, right-wing news and entertainment, selling fear, fear, and fear, because fear keeps the prey pliable.
That's why every time you see breaking news on every channel, it's because there's that immediate, oh, what's happening? Especially when it doesn't actually matter, but it gets that little serotonin boost of, ooh, attention. Yeah.
He went into international slavery ventures, mining, the cocaine business, every major evil enterprise that rose in the second half of the 20th century had Hudson Gore.
Which means he probably was also in coffee, because there are illicit substances that kill almost as many people as just harvesting coffee. I thought that was a joke the first time I heard it, but no, apparently it's not. And I'm not going to go into detail because it's fucking depressing, man.
Somewhere in...
Also, most cultivation characters are some degree of delusional. Oh yeah, but it's honestly one of the things I like about the setting. But I also like fundamentally broken characters. And one of my favorite cultivation novels is fan fiction of all things called Sect by Ryugi. So I'm not really one to talk.
Sided, facilitating, and profiting. He sits on the Pentex board of directors.
Yeah, that's up there. He's Pentex.
Masculinity cultures and like predatory...
Wait, was this a canon character, not just someone he made up? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Crypto schemes to ruin people's lives. He is heavily involved with the Mammonite sect of the Nefandi, and he loves the syndicate convention of the technocracy.
Yeah.
He's corrupted that organization in ways that few others have even been able to imagine.
So in other words, the Nefandi corrupted, according to this, the syndicate, to which everyone would say, how can you tell the difference? And according to Martin, he made this one up. Because this would be such a perfect one. It's like the big boss of basically everything Cosmic would hate. For anyone wondering, Cosmic Void specifically hates the technocracy, and this would just make it worse. And I love it.
Few get to see him anymore these days, but he leaves an impression when they do meet him.
Like
standing
a
at
fist,
over 2
or
meters, always clad in fine tailored suits, muscle-bound and barrel-chested. He is especially fond of slavery. He
God damn. When they go villains, they go hard, man.
Loves the feeling of domination it brings. Loves working people until there's nothing left of them. It's the ultimate form of predation because the prey kind of does all this to itself willingly. Sometimes he likes to go old school though. Hunt for sport. He brings slaves to some remote corner of the world like the jungle, the desert, the Arctic tundra,
the most dangerous game,
even
yeah.
the ocean or vast cave systems, perhaps even locations in the Umbra. He gives them quite a head start as he transforms to adopt traits of the local apex predators, and then he goes out to fucking hunt.
So in other words, his entire magic is probably based around matter, or not, so life, so he can turn himself into things. But because the Malfians are not based on their identity as a mage, the most horrible things he does are things he does, not that he does with magic.
He has fun with it, plays with his food, likes to see them paralyzed by the knowledge that they are absolutely and utterly at his mercy, and then he eats them. Flesh and bone.
This is almost one of those times you hope someone awakens as a mage, because the awakening comes with the fuck reality, I'm doing my own thing without any downside for a few seconds. And that could fuck him over because, I mean, you'd have to be very lucky, but also you have to know what you're doing enough to say, fuck this in particular. I'm very much thinking of a certain Norfolk Wizard game where a guy named Bill decided, nope, that ain't there anymore. And it wasn't.
And mind, and body, and soul, all of it. His personal labyrinth, which can be accessed through many of the elevators of a number of skyscrapers that he owns, that go like all the way down into an inverted skyscraper, just as modernist in its design and filled with his most important projects and employees. All around it lies a wasteland of urban decay, caught in a constant storm of dry lightning, churning down into the central point of the world, a hole straight into oblivion, which the penthouse office at the bottom hangs just above. After one of his hunts, gorged as he is on the people he's consumed, he will sit on his obsidian toilet and shit their remains right into the maw of oblivion. And that's it.
Yeah, that's fucked up. And just like cartoonishly evil. And yeah. I stand by the general kill order when it comes to Nefandi, because fuck that.
That's the three major sects of the Nefandi. There are a few smaller ones, like the Baphis, who worship Baphomet but are too cool to be Infernalists. The Mammonites, I mentioned them earlier, who use capitalism as their preferred tool for corruption. The Heralds of the Basilisk, hackers who want to bring about the creation of Roko's Basilisk.
Oh, God, yeah, I remember. He actually did an entire video about Roko's Basilisk, I'm pretty sure he actually reacted to. I liked the scientific concept, and he made the counterpoint of the, I keep wanting to say hamster, but that's completely the wrong creature. Capybara. Yeah, the capybara of life, and that was awesome. Also, Alex, sup?
That's the demon that they worship. Anything evil that you see in the world, you can build a Nefandi cult around. In fact, try it. Put your made-up Nefandi in the comments. Here's the thing, though.
Walmart leadership at a local store. They just do horrible things like, hey, yeah, we needed you last night. You're late. Get here now. It's 3 a.m. We don't care. We're getting you in early. You don't have a phone. That's fine. This letter will find you at your house. If you don't find it, we'll make sure to just dock your pay a bit. Just being that level of spiteful dick that no one can get around, but not so bad that you can quit. Just, it's that little bit of hating the world a little bit more to push you over the edge. Yeah, that sounds evil. Oh, also, Kino, one, thank you for joining, and at the clean shaven level, too. Thank you very much. I don't know why every time I read clean shaven, I want to say clean member low level shave. I'm trembling over words that are not even there. Also, I'll just pull this up because I can. And you mentioned it's been a bit, but I wanted to ask if you could add a video to the list. We need to know Blood Ravens by an announcer for games. I gifted a membership for it and added 2 weeks ago. That's one I think I would love to do, but also we're probably going to be doing one of these. It might be Freeman's Mind, it might be America Wizard. I have to see what happens. Oh, and Necro, Rocco's Basilisk is the thought experiment that sounds like it belongs to Star Trek one-shot. Yeah, that's the one. It's also fundamentally not accurate, and his entire video goes into why and wouldn't work. Because the fact that you could think about it means that it can't happen, because if you had thought about not letting it happen, you would have already been dead. So since you're not dead, it didn't happen. Yeah. It's kind of actually funny.
What I have just described to you may seem like a bunch of implacably almighty players, right? The architects of all evil.
Honestly, the last one especially, dropping a werewolf in here was like, oh no, you kidnapped me. Now you're stuck in here with me. Would be the ultimate turnaround story. It's like, oh, you turned yourself into a monster. Congratulations. Aye. Because a mage is still probably not up to fighting a freaking werewolf, especially one that's ready for it.
Get that out of your head. The Nefandi do not create evil. There is plenty of evil already, and they harness it for their purposes. They amplify it, they promote it, yes, but they did not create evil. It is not a power they impose on the world. It is not a metaphysical means of control.
And this is also why the last guy is probably the most evil. Not because of the eating part, but because the stuff he does that's the most damaging for the guy Gore. Also, yeah, the eating and killing people thing. So Gore is literally what he does as well. It's that he got there by purely human means that other people embraced and enabled, who weren't Nefandi.
that they made up like a spell. It's simply the twisted ideal that they subscribe to. They desperately want you to believe that just because evil exists, evil is implacable, that destruction is inescapable, that everything is pointless because the bad guys always win in the end. And of course, you know, they are that bad guy. Which leads to the question, inevitably, who do you think is more convinced that the truth is on his side? The powerful man who sits, or the powerful man who is constantly using his power to prove how powerful he is?
That's an old quote I've heard before. Not this, but similar to it. You can always tell the difference between someone who knows they've done it and versus someone who knows they haven't. I'm heavily paraphrasing. Either like made it, who's rich, who's powerful. Because if you are truly strong, you don't need to tell people. Yeah. I just love that little thing of, if you have to tell people, you're a big deal. Nah. Which is why I never say anything, mostly out of embarrassment, because I know I'm not a big deal, and it's a really like embarrassing. Oh, you found my channel IRL. I apologize for everything I said, because I know exactly what I said, and it doesn't really matter what you heard at any point, because it will be something that could be used against me, and accurately too, which makes it worse.
It's all a lie, and it's a lie they are desperate to believe. And yes, a lie is halfway across the world before the truth has, finished tying its shoes. But the truth is also an endurance hunter. It always catches up eventually. Lies need constant energy to be maintained. The truth, being self-evident, never tires. And the truth about evil, and consequently Nefandi, is that it's weak. Evil is weak. That's why all it seeks is to be strong. The Nefandi are disloyal to one another. They cannot bear to stand in the light of friendship, even. They are so obsessed with power and dominance, and in spite of all their efforts, they have neither. Everything they do, with the entirety of their being, the traditions and technocracy have departments dedicated to countering. Departments. Not the whole organization. It's just departments.
And that's the ultimate irony of it. The one thing the technocracy and the traditions agree on. Fuck those guys, but also we don't care enough because they're not actually that strong individually. Except for when they are. Because the better enemies are the other people who don't agree in true evil because they can fight more. Yeah. So Valerian, they are the losers? Yeah, they are. But they're the losers who will flip the table. And that's why you got to still pay attention to them, because fuck those guys. Also because they enable the worst aspects of everyone else who isn't evil, but does, exist. So they can push things worse and slowly win, but only because other people let them.
There's actually not very many Nefandi out there, and the ones who do exist are hunted without mercy. The ones who manage to evade that sort of thing are constantly jockeying and backstabbing one another.
Yeah.
They can't.
I mean, the guy at Pentex is probably the most likely to be killed off, because Pentex. Also, I just learned a little bit about Mike Dragon's Wrath, who apparently is a real character that I didn't realize because I thought it was an OC made by Bruva Alphabusa. I was wrong. Yeah, I need to find out just how terrifying that guy is, because I was told the answer was no, just no. It's like fighting Cain. You only have a slightly better chance against the Dragon Wrath guy. Yeah.
Really work together. They can never trust each other because they simply don't believe in the concept. Everything they do to collaborate, they waste 10 times the resources on scheming about. When everyone fears you, you only have enemies. So much.
And which is also probably, actually, I wonder if this part right here literally led into his basilisk response about the capybara, because this seems like the intro to that argument.
Of their effort is focused on recruiting because what they do is not sustainable. It cannot hold. It cannot continue.
Like an MC or a multi-level marketing or a Ponzi scheme. It only works until the people at the bottom get so fucked that they realize, oh, they're just lying to me. And then it kind of unspools. Yeah, because it always relies on ever bigger pools of people under you to prop you up. Yeah.
It simply doesn't work.
But can fuck a lot of people in the process.
Many individuals among them are very powerful mages, but ultimately, they are always defeated. And that's what you can do with it, right? Nefandi are not supposed to be player characters. Playing them would frankly be a little bit boring, but they make fascinating antagonists, and that's really what we want from them. In terms of creating chronicles and campaigns with them, it's great to have some pure black on your palette. You can mix it with other colors, or just create some contrast by drawing a strong outline. Because they're so secretive and ultimately designed to be villains, metaplot-wise, you can pretty much place them wherever you want. They might be all-powerful agents that have infiltrated the highest ranks of the technocracy or the traditions. There's official metaplots describing that sort of thing. Or maybe they're cockroaches at the bottom of the world that no amount of stumping will kill dead. If you want, you can play a campaign where they win, and there's like an apocalypse that's in line with whichever faction wins among their own number.
I mean, they also had plenty of people who brought about the apocalypse who weren't Nefandi, and then it got better. Except for the times where it didn't. Actually, the one that they would probably hate the most is the good outcome for the sorcerer apocalypse, which was magic just slowly dies no matter what you do, but you let some other universe get magic so it's not dead forever everywhere, and you're just left with a normal world where all of their powers like, wait, so we hit the apocalypse and that's it? That's it? That's it? They probably hate it the most because that's it, and the apocalypse came, and they're still there. Move on. And they don't think they could deal with that. Probably worse than the mages losing power, because they built their entire life around something that turned out to be a lie, and they won't have any way to do anything about it anymore. Where a mage would still probably have all their connections, and they still are like, okay, yeah, okay, don't have magic anymore. But also, I still am rich. Versus an Nefandi's like, I don't care about the money. I just wanted to fuck things over. And now I'm being told I can't. It didn't actually matter. It might actually break them harder. And I kind of love that. I mean, it would also break a lot of the mages, but at that point, who cares? And Martin, you mentioned that's not just the sorcerer apocalypse. That's one of the mage ones. Oh, they actually combine them. Nice.
It's maybe the last chance for the non-evil mages to make a stand and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Or if this kind of thing just seems sort of overly tacky and edgy to you, if it's all just tiresome, you can just not have them.
Yeah.
Like, they could just not be Nefandi in your setting.
Although I do enjoy having the tacky, edgy, evil asshole, because I like having that to compare the tacky, I can't believe they might actually count as the good guys of the technocracy, or the tacky, I can't believe they might actually count as the good guys as the hermetics and the 9 traditions, but also the hermetics. Again, I dump on them, but I actually do love the faction, unironically. And Martin, they are the ghoul equivalent of Mage the Ascension. Oh, for sorcerers, yeah. Although I am always wondering about sorcery, because that's one of those things I would love to find out if it changes when a mage themselves does sorcery. Seems kind of interesting.
Sure as shit don't appear in most campaigns already, so, you know, you're probably not even going to miss them. It is, after all, and say it with me, folks, your world of darkness.
Yep.
Thank you very much for watching this video. It has been an absolute pleasure telling you about these evil wizards. Like, comment, subscribe,
I think the title
share
for this
this
has to be
to
Evil
your
Wizard!
relevant communities. Consider supporting me on Patreon.
Have I
One
subscribed?
of the rewards actually
I think I
is
did.
to be on my weekly
Really embarrassed if I didn't.
live stream, Fast Food Thursday, which happens every Tuesday currently, and includes momentous events of international politics, such as us, and this is true, developing the official dumpling of the state of New Zealand. It was a huge deal.
There's a dumpling?
Someone pretending to be
It's
the
a
Prime
state?
Minister showed up for the ceremony. There was a whole recipe. I put the recipe in the description. You
Is
can
it
look
good?
at it. That is right now, that is the official, actual dumpling of New Zealand that was made and was accepted by a fake Prime Minister. And
I mean, that's just fact there. I don't care what you say. If it was good enough for the Catholic Church to have multiple fake popes, why not go for it? Multiple times, even.
in that spirit, I got to come up with a new outro thing to say, right? Because the reasons for this are complicated, but I elaborate on them in an interview I recently did with James Tullis on his second channel.
Oh.
So if you haven't heard enough of my voice right now, go watch that. So right now, I'm sticking with see you around, folks. And see you around, folks.
Oh, dude, I love Burgerkrieg's content. It's just so freaking cool. And to see everything about all the other factions. I mean, Vampire, I'm still kind of, it's interesting, it's cool, there's a lot of things going on. But I absolutely just love Mage stuff because there's so much in it that isn't just, the world is horrible. How do you deal with that? Because Mage is one of those, the world is the world, and the people have an effect on it, and for better or worse, you do have agency still. And that is probably what makes it my favorite setting. And also because they're all kind of silly when you get down to it, and I just like that in general. Basically what I'm saying is, if you guys haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And if you have some crazy experiences with Nefandi in your games, hit me up about this, because I kind of want to hear what other people have done. Martin, you're exempt from that one because I'm terrified to think of anything you might do. But everyone else, let me know, because this is awesome. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.